the most foundational element to safety is your own self-awareness. Some message is going to come to me that our training saved someone's life, and it will have all been worth every single minute.
Jennifer Lastra, welcome to the Safety Spotlight podcast.
Absolutely thrilled to be here.
We're happy to have you. Going through your background, and something I've noticed with a lot of safety professionals is no one has one set story for how they got into this industry. And you yourself have a very unique background. So I'd kind of like to hear just a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are?
I'm about the most non-traditional pathway to entrepreneurship, but it always starts with a passion as a little person, right? Little girl.
Yeah.
Always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I literally had no idea what that could look like. Never in a million years would I've ever imagined owning a virtual reality safety training company. I mean, there's no way to have envisioned something like that happening. So I guess, long story short, I started my professional career as an enlisted U.S. Navy electrician, shipboard electrician. So I'm one of those people that was, I was 21, 22, ready to get out of town, and was like, everybody in my family, long generation of Navy personnel, and was like, yep, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to get out of here. But yeah, I joined, became an electrician, did my time in the service, which was a very interesting experience that really did shape a lot of where I am today. A lot of things that happened. I'm very proud of serving my country. But I took all that experience, and then what does somebody do that is a trained shipboard electrician, but go into shipbuilding? So I transitioned my career right into shipbuilding pretty much. That was another experience. You can never prepare for some things that your career pathway will take you. And so being flexible and learning everything that I can as fast as I can, and continuing to, build opportunities for myself. I was in shipbuilding for quite some time on the construction side. And then I transitioned, by the way, loudest, dirtiest, hottest, coldest.
You did it all, covered all the bases.
Some of the most insane work environments. We were building the USS Ronald Reagan, which is a U.S. Aircraft carrier at the time. Hardest work I've ever done in my entire life. Not just the environment, but just everything. Went into then I went into the program office, and went back to school, got my bachelor's, got my master's. And then I had the opportunity to step into, so I understood the construction side of the world, and then I got into the manufacturing side, actually working with night vision goggles. And so I got to see the manufacturing, the intricacies of the manufacturing side of image intensifiers. Very fascinating process. And that's when I really started to see what it felt like to lead without having, I'll say, authority over people, really having to bring people together to get things done, to get questions answered, working with union folks, salaried folks, the dynamics of all of that. And that was
connecting
really
all of those pieces.
Yeah, that was really interesting, not having the influence over people, but still needing to get the job done and being responsible, as the project manager, programs manager of, you got to hit your budget, you got to hit your schedule and your delivery and everything. So it's really interesting dealing more with people at that point and leading. And then came and moved out of the night vision industry, came to where I am today in Boise, Idaho, and was working for a small business that trained pilots how to use night vision, and we modified cockpits to be night vision compatible. And that was my first entree really professionally into a small business, family-owned small business. And after a little bit of time, I was like, you know what? I really feel called to go do something big. And that's when I discovered the power of virtual reality. And I'll say it, I'm not a tech person. I just really saw an opportunity with the technology. And it was that light bulb moment that you hear entrepreneurs talk about. They
Yeah.
saw it, they felt it, and the rest is history, and
Almost like a calling, sort of. You just
no,
can't
that
describe it. Yeah.
that's exactly what it was. It was my calling. Everything just started to unfold in ways that, again, I literally could have never anticipated. Um, I just knew that there's something bigger for me to be doing. And I'm not a software developer. I'm not a coder. First time entrepreneur, very passionate about safety, very passionate about service. But to see these things line up and then figure out our niche and how to take, an idea and bring it all the way to a product delivery and bringing it to market. I mean, to me, that's when I look back, it's been 10 years. In July, it'll be 10 years that I've been at this. And me and my team, it's definitely not me. I feel like I'm the puppet master, right?
Yeah.
Pulling the strings, but it's just that vision. And um, when the times get really tough, it's the vision that I go back to. It's the mission, right? Positively impacting 1 million lives every year.
Yeah.
How can we take something that is fundamentally ineffective, inefficient, right? That's what entrepreneurship is. Take something that's broken, add value to it, and then get it out into, the communities where it can be most benefited from.
Being able to find that why is something that I think is really key, especially like you mentioned in the startup space or the smaller business space where there are tougher times, right? Finding out what your reason is, and I something that I find is in the safety realm that is so crucial, because what we do is it gets to really the heart of life itself, right? Protecting something that is so precious, right? Which is life, and making sure people get to go home safely, right?
I don't think there's a lot of people that aren't in safety to do that exact thing, to make sure that their people get home safe at night. The challenge, though, is organizations talk about their values. And in the most dynamic industries, you're going to see that on their website, right? Our people are our biggest asset. Making sure everybody goes home. Safety is a top priority. It should be in their top 2, top 3, top 5 at least. And a lot of organizations talk about that. And some are the gold standard. Some of them are always innovating. They're always iterating. And some of it's because they have the budget, they have the personnel to be able to do that. They're able to, talk the talk and walk the walk. That's great. What about the organizations, the small businesses? And that really is truly my passion, is the small businesses, the trainers that are out there fighting the good fight. That even your best trainer is going to have their off days. Even your best, HR person that, does HR, has to do safety training, where it may not be their subject matter expertise, but they're out there doing the best that they can to make people aware, especially in high hazard industries, to make people aware of what they could encounter. But see, that's where some of the disconnect comes in, is it's very difficult to explain to people, maybe who haven't been on a construction site or out on an oil rig, or any of these types of high hazard industries. If they haven't been out there before, it's very unrelatable. What about people who have blended learning styles like myself? What about people who have development delays? What about people where English may not be their first language, right? So we have these people out here doing the best they can to explain safety and what it means. But if the learners can't relate, whether it's mentally picture what they're talking about, physically have been there's just a massive disconnect. And we have technology today that's available and has been available. There's just been barriers to entry for it. And the technology I'm the most passionate about is virtual reality, mixed reality. I love VR because it's a private experience. It can be very private. And that means you're closed off from the reality around you, right? And you're held captive to an experience that's unfolding, and you're part of that experience. So when you've captured someone's attention, you also capture, their imagination. And when we can make someone or allow someone to emote an expression, fear, excitement, joy, the spectrum of emotions, when you can emotionally connect with a learner, you've got them. And the reason why I say that is because that's where you start to build that memory. Because when you see something, you hear something, you feel something, that's what traditional training methods lack, that ability to emotionally connect with with learners. We want training to be fun, edutainment, educational entertainment. We want people, we want people to feel immersed, connected, and the ability for autonomy. Because we know today's learners, they're all about, I want to do this myself. I want to do it in my own time. I want to do it my own way. Self-exploration, right? We look at why video games are so popular. Now take all of those components. So look at gamification in this way. There's like 9 components to gamification. You've got timers, you've got tracking systems, you've got an objective, you've got self-exploration, you have this immersive environment. Looks like, sounds like, feels like. Again, these emotions, these feelings, that is the bridge. That's the fundamental bridge that VR brings to an experience that is unlike anything that we have access to today.
Right.
I think right now, technology is advancing like every 6 months. It's like, it's just going so fast.
I woke up the other day and there's a new AI, there's a new headset, there's a new, it really is incredible.
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit more about those stories of maybe an example of a time where somebody came in from, having gone through traditional safety training, you hand them this new technology and they get the chance to really experience safety in a way that they hadn't maybe understood before or given them that perspective before. Do you have like an example of a time where somebody really was kind of like blown away by this?
It's those aha moments. So let me explain it this way. Think of simulation-based training like this as the knowledge transfer check. Can you apply what you just learned into an environment? Right? So let's say you're in a lecture. Let's say you're taking self-paced e-learning, whatever the situation is. And now you get to put on a VR headset. And now you get to go, and if it's hazard recognition, situational awareness, now you get to go into that environment and basically test your own knowledge. Can I apply what I just learned? Can I understand? Again, looks like, sounds like, feels like. Can I understand what a safe or unsafe environment looks like? And it's anytime you put on a VR headset, it's the most brilliant that I've enjoyed watching high school students, because they don't know. They don't know what a construction site looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And they put on that VR headset and they're like, oh, wow, this is this is awesome, right? Because they're used to that type of gaming type environment.
Hmm.
Or it's even more impactful if you actually have like a 360 video. So it's real people, real processes, real life environments. And you feel like you're in the middle of that whole training situation or that simulation. There's nothing like it. And so as we have these younger generations that are coming into the workforce that are, interested, but not know if they're willing to commit into construction or into a manufacturing role or something like that, putting them into these environments and they're just blown away. And you've got them, right? You got them hooked.
Hooked, yeah.
It's also, let's go to the other spectrum. It's also the people who, let's say they're towards the end, exiting their career, and they start, I call it the hamster wheel going round and round in their brain. Oh my goodness, do you know what we could use this type of training for? And then here come the ideas. So here we go. We're talking nothing but engagement, motivation, right? Excitement, that energy, that positive energy around a topic that traditionally people are like,
this again,
they want me,
right?
Here we go again. I've taken this training every year for the last 5 years. I really don't feel like doing this again. It's just checking the box. We all know it, right? What's the difference between that and, wow, that was really cool? Every trainer wants to hear this. I want to do it again. I want to try again. Those types of responses.
It's everything.
It's everything. It's everything. It really is.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And bringing engagement and it really does make the difference between just sitting in a classroom, right? Mm-hmm. And just passively absorbing information and then actively putting somebody in that place where they can really understand it. Can you speak a little bit more to how this applies to all industries in safety with crisis situations?
When you look at, and this goes to answer your question, where are the gaps in traditional training methods where in experience, using storytelling, using, game design, gamification, where are the gaps where we can give the learner an experience that the only other way that they would get it is from firsthand account, right? And especially when you're talking about high risk, low incidence type scenarios, and how are you going to prepare for a trench collapse? How are you going to prepare for that? Using the power of technology, an arc flash. I don't want to have to, there are just certain safety circumstances that a lot of people don't survive from. A trench collapse and an arc flash and blast is one of them. The likelihood of surviving that is, they're pretty dang slim.
It's usually you talk about experiences. That's usually your last one, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so how can we prepare people? And again, this is the foundational, I'm going to go on a tangent here because this is very important. What we're taught is the foundational element of safety is hazard recognition, situational awareness. That's not all true. From my perspective, the most foundational element to safety is your own self-awareness. Where are you here? What are you thinking? What are the thoughts going on in your mind? Are you distracted? Are you sleep deprived? Are you completely stressed out because something happened at home and that's where your mind is right now? What is, your mind-body connection is the most important first aspect. And then we get into visual literacy, right? So emotional literacy, understanding yourself, self-awareness, self-preservation, checking in with yourself first, and then understanding your surroundings. But traditional safety methods, we don't talk about the human being, the complexities of being human. We don't talk about that first. And I think what an amazing opportunity to take traditional compliance-based workplace safety training and add that component in. Teach people about emotional intelligence, especially our frontline workforce, about the importance of self-advocacy skills, communication skills, empathy, right? And how important those are, beginning with yourself. I'm not even talking about when interacting with others. I'm saying begin with learning about yourself first. Be that example, right? We want to create cultures, a safety culture. I always put it in air quotes, safety culture. What we want is good human beings coming together to, answer the mission. We want them to do it safe. We want them to be, productive. So the idea of giving somebody truly an experience that is not just don't use this ladder, don't electrocute yourself. It's so much bigger than that. Why aren't you wearing your PPE? Why did you skip the inspection step? Let's talk about that. Are you in a hurry? Do you feel like if you don't just get up there and go do it, you're going to get in trouble?
Right.
Are you afraid to ask a stupid question? My PPE doesn't fit. I've told you this 4 times and you're not doing anything to help me get it replaced. I don't have the extra money to go do it. What am I supposed to do? There's reasons. They say the common reasons for fatalities in the workplace: lack of adequate, effective training, people not paying attention, human error, lack of support from management, right? These are all things. They almost always tie back to ineffective training. But the reality is we're human, we make mistakes. So how can we give different types of scenarios, different types of experiences that people can go through and be like, oh, I can relate to that. I did that. I've done that. I've stood on the top step of the ladder. I've stood on paint cans, tipped over, to stand up and do something because it was going to be real quick.
Yeah.
We've all done it.
What advice would you give to somebody who maybe finds themselves in a situation where they feel unsafe?
It's so ironic you asked that question. So here's a story. As with any small business post-COVID, our team has fluctuated up and down. And let's just say one of our developers moved on from the company and went into residential construction. And I'm not kidding you when this is exactly what happened. One of our current team members says, hey, so-and-so just sent me a picture. He wants you to look at it because he feels that this ladder setup is exceptionally unsafe. He's been asked repeatedly by his boss to do it anyways. To use the ladder in that means anyways. What should I do? What should I tell him to do? And it's ironic because he was one of the developers that helped us create some of our training content. So number one, I'm so grateful he reached out. And of all things, and then came to me, I'm not a safety professional, right? I'm an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. But find somebody that you trust to go ask the question. Be as specific as you can. So he sends the pictures, and basically what's happened is I got a ladder leaning on its side, which everybody knows that's not how you use an A-frame ladder, right? And it's leaning up against something so that it can get into this funky angle. I'm not a safety professional per se, but I know what our safety training says. There's multiple different types of ladders that you can use, right? You need a combination ladder. So my answer back is tell him, thank you so much for reaching out. He's right. It's not safe. And you need a combination ladder. Ask your employer for the right tool. And let them know, just to be safe, I want to make sure we're doing this right, because this is not the first time you've asked me to do this. And here's what I can say. I know what probably ran through this young gentleman's mind. Oh, great, now I'm going to cause a problem. Because everybody, that's the first thing everybody, I need this job, right? This is my lifeline for my security, for me, my family, whatever, right? Whatever's nearest and dearest to your heart. People are afraid to speak up and advocate for themselves. And there's no time more than where we are today, where self-advocacy skills are absolutely crucial. So go talk to somebody who you believe is safe, ask how to handle this. And you know what, at the end of the day, in life, we have to make the best decisions that we can. If you're going to turn your eye, you're going to turn a blind eye to this. Is that the type of employer you want to work for? And so we have to think bigger than just our paycheck, right? And the empowerment that comes with that, the first time you do it, be the change. Be the change you want to see. And it starts with all of us. It really, truly does. This is what I say, when you know better, you do better. And because you can do better, you should. And that's when you know better, you got to do better. Be an example, set an example. So long story short.
There's so many great pieces in there. And I think something that you brought up that was, I think, really important is the validation piece, right? You see something that's unsafe, and maybe, it's not easy, especially when you're in an environment where the boss is saying, don't worry about it, right? But being able to have a contact or a connection with somebody and getting that outside opinion to really confirm that what you're seeing is reality. Mm-hmm. You're not crazy. This is the case, and something needs to be done about it. Just building a community, even if it's one person. It doesn't have to be a ton of different people, but finding somebody that can validate your feelings there.
Special thanks to our sponsor, BIS Safety Software, one of the leading safety and compliance software applications on the market today. We wanted to shout out the team for their new Lone Worker technology, designed to provide enhanced protection and peace of mind for workers while they are working alone. It includes features like check-in schedules, automated notifications, and you can designate supervisors to receive alerts. This Lone Worker technology helps round out the full scope of their safety management software. Lone Worker is just the tip of the iceberg. See everything they have to offer at bissafety.ca.
The amount of room there is to bring technology into the safety space is huge. It is so, I don't know if disruptable is the term to use, but there's
absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think there is so much room for growth when it comes to implementing different technologies. What are some of those key barriers that you see when you're going to an organization that maybe has been doing things the way they've done training for forever? What are some of those key, I guess, objections that you're seeing? And then how does VR really, I guess, solve those problems?
So VR has been around since the 1960s.
Really?
Technology's been around for a really, really long time. And when it became commercially available back in 2014, VR viewers, even in a cardboard, or where we're slapping our cell phone to the front of a viewer. I've got a cemetery over here. It's fun. Typically, we see the first barrier of cost. And I'll be honest, I started, there's only a handful of VR safety training companies that started back in 2014 that are still in business today. I'm one of them, and I'm very proud of that. Cost has always been a barrier. We can no longer let cost be the barrier because we are talking about people's lives. When you look at, and I'm going to use US standards here, Department of Labor every year will put out the annual workplace fatalities number. The challenge is that these numbers over the last, I'm just going to do the last 10 years. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. But the trend is what's, everybody says, oh, look, it's less than it was in 2022. Look, our 2023, 2024 numbers, the 2023 numbers, they look great. They're going down, but the trend is not. The trend continues to rise. And if we let cost be the barrier for why people don't have a more superior training experience, well, then I'm not doing my job. And so the first things that we have to do is reverse the thought that it costs too much. So there's cost, there's change management. Change is hard. In the training industry, it doesn't evolve very much. What do we have? PowerPoint from 25 years ago? Right? Online training. Wow. But look at the trend in online training. It's exploding. That industry of online training, education, anything dealing with upskilling people, online universities. I mean, the trend is absolutely going to continue to explode. It's going to be it's exciting. So how do we give everybody the best experience that we can with the tools that we have, right? So we've got change management as a barrier. We've got, I got to go get equipment. I got to go get all this. Well, you know what we saw? This is what we saw 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. Well, no, hell, this was before COVID. So we're talking, time flies. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah.
I would say probably, let's say 5 to 6 years ago, we realized that everybody's not going to get excited about strapping a VR headset to their face. Even though I think everybody should. Or be wearing glasses, right? Mixed reality glasses by now. So we realized we have to meet learners where they're at. We have to meet organizations where they're at. We've got to be able to get people to access this type of training with whatever device or however they're used to consuming the information. So the barrier of accessibility has to be removed. We can't just allow this training to be for those companies that are large enough to afford it. We've got to make it accessible. Here's a statistic that really shook me. The data shows that that 2/3 of fatalities in the workplace over the last 10 years, 2/3 of the fatalities in the workplace are happening within organizations that have less than 100 employees. That's a huge number. When we talk about vulnerable populations, small businesses are a vulnerable population. Rural communities are vulnerable populations. Because we can, we should. We know better now. We should be doing better. All of us should be doing better that are content curators, that are creating training content today. We should all be doing better. We should be focusing on the learner and giving them the best experience that we can and break down those barriers.
Make it accessible. And
Absolutely.
when I was looking at the different devices that you guys have made available for your courses, you've got a smartphone. You don't necessarily have to have, like you said, a VR headset. You can take out your phone and you can move it around, right? And it'll still give you that perspective. You don't necessarily have to make that jump to VR, but the ability to take small steps to increase engagement is huge, right? It doesn't have to be this all or nothing. We're either going all with VR or we're not. You can really kind of build up to that, which I think is huge. And it really speaks to the versatility of the technology.
I'll say this, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So,
Yeah.
but having the foresight, and I applaud my team for this, having the foresight, how should we be building today to capture the opportunity for as many people to consume our content as possible. And it really is through collaboration where we're able to get the word out. And so for that, we're exceptionally grateful, because here's what I know. If we can give somebody an experience that really impacts them, creates that emotional connection, and it happens at work through compliance-based training, if they have an effect at work and then they bring that home, which, by the way, a lot of fatalities happen at home too, doing the exact same silly stuff. But if we can bring that feeling to people's homes and they bring it into their homes and share that, a different perspective, a different, everywhere I go now, I look for hazards everywhere. I can't help it. It's just part of my nature. Oh, that doesn't look safe. If they start to become more self-aware of themselves, their environment, and they bring that into their families and they share that with their families, and then we help people's relationships at home, undoubtedly we're going to impact their communities. Those people are then going to impact their communities. And more than anything, getting the word out so that we can positively impact people and spread that self-awareness, empathy skills, developing those skills. We didn't even get to talk about visual literacy skill development and emotional intelligence, like these types of skills. And if we can get that into people at work while we have them held captive, they bring it into their families, that then spread out into their communities. I mean, I feel like we're really being super impactful, and that the heart that I have for service and honestly, the well-being of our workforce, of our communities, is more important than anything to me. And being part of that, creating that opportunity it's
meaningful.
I don't want to call it priceless, but it truly is. Truly is.
And
why we
that
do
that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Right? One person can have such a huge impact, and if you get a lot of ripples going, all of a sudden you got a wave, right? Jennifer, I want to thank you so much for coming on. You bring such a fantastic energy, and you're so clearly enthusiastic about this topic. Where can people find what you're doing, what 360 Immersive is up to? What have you got going on?
There are a lot of times where I feel like we are the best kept secret, and that's my opportunity as the CEO and co-founder to come out here and advocate for what our team has done and what we continue to do. So we're at 360immersive.com. I love opportunities to do podcasts, write blog posts, to help get this information into people's hands. I know that this training is so impactful. I know that it will undoubtedly reduce injuries. And my biggest, most heartfelt thing is one day I'm going to get an email, a letter, some message is going to come to me that our training saved someone's life. And it will have all been worth every single minute of the ups and downs and the whole journey. It really is about the journey and who you become. So my journey is still unfolding with getting the word out and getting the message out about what we're doing and what the industry, it's not just what we're doing, it's what the industry as a whole that is using this technology to create better, safer outcomes. I mean, everybody's doing an amazing job. We're all just tackling it a little bit differently, which is wonderful. I'm really excited about where this is all headed. The power of AI and combining all of these things. We are going to get that trend of workplace fatalities. We're going to reverse it. And I'm not just talking about our company. I'm talking about this industry that is pouring their hearts into this to make a difference. We are going to reverse that trend. And that makes it all worth it. So,
well, Jennifer, I have full faith that if anyone's going to do it, you guys are at the forefront of that. Thank you again for coming on. We'll put your links for where people can visit your website and your social media as well in the video description below. Thanks again.
You bet. Thanks for having me.